Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley, and I am the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. Imagine a highly successful professional who is well-educated, well-respected, and well-known, comes into my office and says, I feel powerful in most areas of my life, but with my spouse, I feel like a pile of goo. Why is my relationship so hard? In my experience, this is super common. Simply put, relationships with our significant others are often hard and even scary. What if there was a technology that could change all of that? The good news is that my guests, Dr. Helen Hunt and Dr. Harville Hendrix, have created that technology, and it's called Safe Conversations. I use this technology to help couples in my practice, and I do the same in my personal life. Their classic book, Getting the Love You Want, which has sold over 4 million copies, is one of the finest tools I have ever seen, and their work has made them internationally famous. Harville has been on the Oprah Winfrey Show 17 times, and it was an episode featuring him that she submitted to win her first Emmy. These are people I believe you will want to learn from. My wife, Aurianne, who is also a psychologist, joined me at a 3-day workshop with Harville and Helen, and we think the world of the two of them as well as their safe conversations. So listen in as Helen, Harville, and I talk about safe conversations and ways to supercharge your relationship in ways that can help you get the love you want. Dr. Helen Hunt and Dr. Harville Hendrix, who have asked me to call them Helen and Harville, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you. We're delighted to be here.
Yes.
And I'm so glad to be calling you my new friends. I frequently give out this book. In fact, it is my most frequently given out book. It is called Getting the Love You Want. And not only have I seen this technology work in the context of my clinical practice, but I've also used it with my wife extensively. And it has really been a great usherer of profound intimacy and correction and connection. I can't thank you enough for creating this technology. Behind the scenes, we were talking kind of about how paradoxically we're in this world where technology is going at the speed of light. And meanwhile, we're feeling less connected than ever before. And your technology, which could have actually been performed as long as the language was there hundreds of years ago, is more needed today than ever before. I'm wondering if you were to just basically describe safe conversations, also known as Imago, in very simple language, how would you describe your technology?
Well, safe conversations is very simply talking without criticizing, listening without judgment, and connecting around and beyond your differences. And that's what it is when you do it. And it has a structure, which is a 3-step structure that if you go through the structure, mirror, validate, and be empathic, it creates safety, which is what makes it safe to talk. Usually conversations are dangerous. So we say talking is the most dangerous thing people do, and listening is the most infrequent thing people do. So safe conversation counters that by being a way of talking without being dangerous, a way of listening without being judgmental, and connecting beyond your difference. And so to put it all in a package, when you talk with this structured process, and later on we can elaborate on without negativity and with affirmations and empathy, you have a relationship of your dreams because it's safe and you can feel alive and joyful.
I love that. And Helen, did you want to add to that in any way?
Well, I think that you're based in Silicon Valley, and it's sort of poignant to me that we talk about safe conversations a lot to all sorts of audiences. It's used with your significant other. You can use it in your family. You could use it at your school, your workplace. But yeah, I think that the hope of Silicon Valley was to create a cyber world with Facebook and the Amazon, the things that were created in the digital space, brilliant innovation.
Sure.
A new thing for the world to connect. And instead of connecting happens, everyone was sort of 5 or 10 years ago just sort of got, gosh, people are fighting.
Yeah.
Fighting. People are using cyber world to beat up on each other.
Mm-hmm.
One person said to us about 7 or 8 years ago, the cyberspace needs you. We need safe conversations in the cyber world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so safe to be antagonistic via these mediums because nobody sees you and you can say some really horrible things and perhaps displace anger that you're feeling elsewhere and really damage relationships and even people's senses of self. I'm also thinking about how I see people come into my office who are just incredibly successful in every area of their life. And they can't understand why they find their love relationships so terrifying. And to Harville's point, talking is the scariest thing we do. Listening is very hard. The two of you have previously mentioned that a shockingly small percent of what we hear on average is really taken in.
And that's when you're in a good place and good and not scary.
No.
I did find it's actually 30% is the last quote I've seen, because I've been researching that. So it's like between 20 and 30%. But the corollary to that is if you're not in a good place, like you're scared or angry or whatever, you don't hear anything. It's 100% distortion. So when you're upset and you respond, you're responding to the illusion of your own mind. You're not responding to anything outside yourself. So you have to really be quiet inside to get 20 to 30% of what's coming towards you. And if you're not quiet, you don't get anything. Can you imagine then what happens when people think they've been heard, and then they respond as if they've been heard, which they've not been heard? After a while, they don't know what. And couples often say, "We don't know even what happened, what we're fighting about."
It's like the worst game of telephone, except it's only between two people.
That's right. It's exactly. So we need. That's why we build into the structured dialogue process an accuracy check.
Mm.
When you say back to you mirror, you say back to your partner. So if I'm getting what you said, it's the following. So you say back what you think you heard, and then you say, "Did I get that?" Now that we know that the possibility is you got at least 30% of it, but you want to check and see. And the person says, well, usually they'll say, well, most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, well, send the other part again. And you keep working until you get the whole message. But that's how fragile the verbal connection is between human beings.
One of the things I love about both of you is that you really normalize the vulnerability and the experience of being in a couple by openly using your relationship as an example. And I think it's so important in this work. I once heard Helen describing a heated interaction between the two of you in which she finally said something like, hey, let's be quiet for a second. One of us needs to listen. And I believe she took that role. I thought it was such a great way to arrest the cascading phenomenon you were talking about, that game of telephone that can transpire between just two people and the distortions and that wall that is created. Your approach to reducing that is absolutely brilliant. And I just think about how scary relationships are. And I often compare it to I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Empire Strikes Back, where where Luke Skywalker walks into Yoda's cave and he sees the most terrifying things. And I think that our shadow materials, our worst selves, our best selves, but also our worst selves and our most injured selves show up in the context of relationship. Is that consistent with your findings? Yeah.
Yes, it does. And it shows up because most of us in childhood experienced a rupture with our caretakers. And we call that a primal injury. It's not just a casual injury, it's a primal injury. Because the fundamental need for safety and security, survival, is activated. That need is activated with the primal injury. Like, I'm now in danger, but the baby can't language it, can't put it into words. It's a neurophysiological affective feeling. And so what happens then is that process that we were talking about 30%, all of us, and we think this is a primal injury to the human race. All of us have been through this process. That when we are primally injured, we go inside because our survival is at stake. And when we go inside, we begin to make up a world that we think is outside, but it's actually the one we're making up. And then we relate to the outside world as if the outside world is what we made up inside. And there are then these clashes and confusions about it's not the way I experience it, but it should be the way I experience it, because the way I'm experiencing it is the way it is. And the person says, well, actually, I experience it, it's a blue light, not a red light. You say, no, all lights blue, and so forth. So you get into this. So then your brain begins to transfer the source of this pain and fear to the person you're talking to. And they then become a carrier of the danger that is very old in your mind now that's being re-triggered. So it's very complicated when you get into an argument or when you get into any conversation. But if emotion shows up, and especially negative emotion, then all kinds of ghosts begin to raise their heads from the past. And suddenly you're in what we call a true neurosis. And neurosis is you're not dealing with reality. You're dealing with your fantasies. And they come from the past and are regenerated in the present. It's very complicated, which is why it's so important to have a way to talk that regulates all those feelings and those inputs so that as much as possible you can actually relate to each other with some accuracy rather than to each other's fantasies.
Adam, a minute ago you said talking is, having conversations that get scary or something like that. I love how Harville will simplify profound truths. And I think it was maybe about 5 years ago, it was the first time I ever heard you say, talking is the most dangerous thing people do.
So true. It's just so true. And
in my case, like being Harville's partner, when I proposed and married him, I really felt like he could be a great communicator, and there was a great book that needed to be written, and the world needed this stuff. And so I was absolutely committed to improving Harville.
Totally.
That's my God's gift.
This is going to be the best thing ever.
Yeah. He wanting his wife to improve him, I assumed. He didn't pay for consultancy, or I was going to give him free advice and get other people I could charge him for it.
Right. Extreme makeover.
It was miserable in our marriage.
Sure.
And we share publicly about things that I didn't know that me giving advice would be dangerous, because he just went, oh, no way, I don't want to listen to you ever again this week. Just be quiet.
Yes.
And that's such a common experience, isn't it? We think that we're doing our partner a service by shedding light on the blind spots. And it turns out, what are your findings?
The teenagers will tell him if he has spinach in between his teeth. I don't have to. Other people can give him. I don't think that shirt's so great on you. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's a good-looking shirt. Man.
It's a great-looking shirt, Harville. What you guys can't see right now is that he's wearing a very cool Aloha shirt on a Friday. So that's the way to go. I'm sorry.
It's Friday, thank God.
It's Friday, thank God. And one of the things you're speaking about or speaking around is the idea of mind reading. And I know that the two of you really hone in on the importance of not doing that.
Yes, absolutely. We call it, by the way, that one of us needs to listen. Came from Helen. You may remember that story.
That was the way I was trying to convey it. I misspoke.
No, I just wanted to emphasize it came from Helen, and that was the beginning of dialogue. I credit Helen with creating dialogue, because that was in 1977 when we first started seeing each other And this way, as soon as we started seeing each other, we started arguing with each other. And now we call it a creative conversation that's lasted for 42 years. But it started off with some intensity. So Helen actually introduced the fundamental construct of dialogue in 1977. Probably that was in the first 3 months of our relationship, upon which we have built over the years of the ultimate structure of the dialogue process. Because this arguments that we were having was about responding to each other out of our fantasies. And you can't get out of that unless you stop and say, okay, what is it that you're really saying? And let me say back to you what I heard, then check with you to see if I got it. And that stops the intensity. But, and Helen, you may want to fill in on this, but that also means you are now engaging your prefrontal cortex. Away instead of your amygdala, the midbrain, the limbic brain, and that engagement begins to integrate the emotional and cognitive brains. So that the process, I think that's another insight Helen had long before we had any evidence that it was true neurophysiologically. Now there's evidence that the brain is integrated when you have a structured, safe conversation. So it's an amazing thing to do that.
Well, and if I could add to that the healthiest part of the brain is between the left and right brain hemispheres and the neocortex. And it's a place of wondering. It's the noted neuroscientist Dan Siegel calls it tolerating ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sign of brain health that I used to think that if you had a healthy brain, it meant you were smart. And if you were smart, you knew a lot. So I tried to know a lot. And according to this neuroscientist, tolerating ambiguity, like that results in neural integration, and that's what we most want to do. And so I called the guy who wrote that book, and he talks about the place of wonder, like the Dalai Lamas move into the state. That it's a state of, and we now call it in Safe Conversation shifting from judgment to curiosity and wonder. So when Harville, isn't dressed so great or just said something I don't like very much, well, I just mirror him and I wonder why he said that or why he put that shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
Of not knowing. In my brain now practices not knowing with Harville and just not talking, enjoying the silence with him because he's smart. He doesn't need me to tell him stuff. And I love that because I can just relax and let him be him.
Totally.
Giving up control.
So, it just occurs to me, Helen, with what you're saying, another new thought.
For my sake, not for his sake. It's fun. It's fun to do.
So another new thought in listening to you in that is that curiosity, you used the word, this the safe place in the brain. And I hadn't thought about that before, but it's in the prefrontal cortex between the left and right hemispheres. There's no feeling there. That's not there's no sensations or feelings go there. So it's a place of cognitive processing.
Right.
Curiosity belongs there and wonder belongs there, but there's no curiosity in the midbrain, in the amygdala, in the emotional brain. The emotional brain is not interested in you, does not ask questions. It simply protects itself. And so if you hear something, this is a new piece. I hadn't actually put that together before. So if something comes that's scary, the midbrain is not going to say, so tell me what's going on with So you have to actually feel that it scared you and then say, instead of reacting out of that brain, I'm going to react out of the prefrontal cortex, unless the midbrain is so terrified that it reacts before the prefrontal cortex plugs in, because the prefrontal cortex is always second. The emotional brain is the primary receptor to see whether it's safe or dangerous. So it's really interesting, and I never thought of it before. In the emotional side of the brain, there is no room for curiosity.
That's right.
Nor wonder. It's just, are you going to kill me or not?
Exactly. Is that snake poisonous?
Yeah.
So, Adam, let me share with your viewing audience what we're talking about.
Sure.
So, what is safe conversations? So, safe conversations is a new definition of relationship. A lot of people think, if I've known someone a while, I got a relationship with them, and a relationship is just someone with two people with a history. And we take pains to say that safe conversations is two people and the space between them.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? It's invisible. There's nothing there, but it's an energy field.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Basically, here is what safe conversations is in just a few sentences. When the energy field between two people feels safe to both of them, they have a connected relationship. If there's any anxiety that one person has caused the other person by a look in the eye, tone of voice, or something, if there's anxiety in the energy field, the connecting is ruptured.
Sure.
And there are three things you can do to restore safety between two people in a relationship. One is a dialogue process. It's a 3-step dialogue that people take turns doing. One person is the sender and one person receives and mirrors.
Right.
Says, is there more? And validates and empathize. And then they take turns talking. And this dialogue process helps people stay safe. Number 2 is both people need to identify a childhood challenge, something that happened in their growing up years that hurt them. And if they can tell each other what growing up was like and ways that they were sort of traumatized in childhood by an intrusive parent or a neglectful parent or whatever, caretaker or whatever, if they can language that to their partner and then tell their partner, because I was traumatized like by someone intruding all the time on me, or they weren't there, they neglected me, I could tell you what my need as an adult. I need you to treat me in a way that's different from the way I was treated in childhood. And then the third thing is both people making a commitment to zero negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So a person should be able to talk about anything in their relationship. They need to be honest. But safe conversations teaches people to talk about anything in a way that's more likely to engage the other person to help with the problem and get them on board to solve the problem, instead of I'm having a problem and I'm mad at you and the other person wants to leave the room.
Right.
There's a way to convert frustrations into a request to solve the problem.
And so many thoughts are going through my head, Helen, as the two of you are sharing this with me. First off, I love the idea of one of us needs to listen. That could almost be the name of the therapy in and of itself. One of us needs to listen. And I'm also just thinking neurophysiologically, just to geek out with the two of you, since this is kind of something we both love, all three of us love, is the idea that the amygdala, without whom we would not survive, is responsible for fear and anger. And thank God for the presence of that, because we are the beneficiaries of the ability to know if there's a life or death situation. The problem is it overrides and it becomes our go-to, and is a fairly long, distant voyage neurophysiologically to get from the amygdala to the prefrontal. And I'm thinking about the idea of that neurons that fire together, wire together. And essentially what the two of you have created is a workout system that will increase the efficiency of getting from the amygdala to a place of curiosity. And that is an enormous contribution to mankind.
Yeah. I've never thought about it as a workout, but it is absolutely an appropriate metaphor, because we call it a practice that that we are less interested in what people understand about themselves and how they explore their inner world and their past, except for the purpose of getting empathy, which is a relational thing. We're much less interested in what you know about yourself than whether or not you can interact with another human being without pissing them off. And if you can do that, and you can interact, and that person feels safe with you, then we call that relational competency. And if you are relationally competent, you will have a good relationship, and probably a better relationship than therapeutic processes. And I hate to say this, since I practiced insight focused therapy for 30 years. Probably you will become as therapeutically well by becoming relationally competent as you will by thorough analysis, interpretation, insight, and self-understanding. Because if you just know something but can't do something, then you're still in the environment where something has to be done.
Right.
So that's, I think that's one of the things we've had to, we wanted to language very carefully, not to disempower therapy, but to say maybe therapy includes relational competency.
Absolutely. And speaking of relational competency, the two of you have endorsed the idea of a driver's license-like process before getting a marriage license. What would the skills before getting, that was a Helenism. Okay, so that was Helen. Okay, that was awesome, Helen. I love that one so much. But what would the skills be on the test to increase likelihood of a better marriage?
Well, Adam, it's mainly that there would be a test and a manual we would have to read. So the analogy for the listening audience is that we think that when two people want to acquire a marriage license and they have their $20 or however much it is, and they go, okay, we want a marriage license, and they plop down their money, that instead it should be like a driver's license. To get a driver's license, you don't just plop down money. You have to read a manual and you take a test. And if you pass the test, then you get your driver's license. Who wants to have a marriage license, they should read a manual. We could write it. Others,
I think so.
They would have to pass the test. And if they don't pass the test, they have to read the manual again. And they do not get their license until they pass the test. And this would prevent problems. This is why we are all about, we want it to be for the hurting couple. But if this was a national policy, we would prevent problems.
So I want to add a piece to that. They also should go to driver's school before they go apply.
Oh, yeah.
Adam will do classes.
I would love it.
Anyone in California.
So
he's going to open up a...
that's a fun thought. I could imagine that Adam could do that. And I wouldn't mind having a monthly class on how to prepare for marriage. Just have an hour and people show up and
maybe at the manual.
And when we tell them, here is what you need to know about yourself, and then here's what you need to be able to do with that knowledge. And now you can go to the marriage bureau and get a license because we'll give you a certificate. But wouldn't it be great if the culture had to have that certificate? Don't even show up here without a certificate that you went to a premarital education class and passed.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Because, churches give premarital education classes. In fact, this is kind of controversial to say, but some do. But they don't put much in it that having to do with actually how to conduct an interaction with people on a day. They do values, like respect and honor God and all kinds of things, and do your prayers and so forth, pretty much, which is fine. But none of them that we've looked at, and Retroville does, but that's a Catholic program in which they do have a structured process of learning actual interactive skills, but I don't know of any others. But that's what we would need, is that you would have, because when you go to driver's school, you can't just study the manual. You have to drive a car.
That's right.
And somebody has to watch you drive the car. And they say, hey, it looks like you can drive, you can park, and so forth, and move through traffic. So now I'll sign off on you. Now you can go get your license.
Right. It's not just an intellectual process, but you have to actually execute while anxious. And that's really that's where the proof is. You know, the two of you have come up with so many great axioms, and I almost wish the two of you would just come up with like a book filled with, you know, Hellenisms and Harvillisms. But a few of them are that your technology is simple, but it is not easy, which implies that it has to be practiced. And another one of them is that the past is always present in the present. And another one that you said relates to something that might be on the license test. And that is that some people actually erroneously believe, in my opinion, that no fighting is optimal. But you say that conflict is growth trying to happen. I'm going to repeat that. Conflict is growth trying to happen. And I was wondering if the two of you could just speak about how conflict can produce growth, connection to self and one's partner when handled optimally.
Yeah. Well, it's the question is, what is trying to happen in the conflict? And what's trying to happen is I'm trying to show up in this relationship.
Right.
I'm trying to get your attention. I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to get something done. And I'm not succeeding in getting that done. But it's not that I'm fighting with you in order to fight. I'm fighting because I'm needing to be able to show up here.
Yep.
So the growth that's trying to happen is to get visible, to get acknowledged, to get affirmed, and so forth. And to also learn, and here's the paradox in it, that the best way to get what I'm trying to get done is to help my partner get done what I'm trying to get done, i.e., because she wants to show up too. She wants to be visible too. She wants to be seen. So we're in conflict, not because we like to fight, but because there's something we need that feels really centrally important to us, that survival directive. Because when you ignore me, when you deny me, when you don't see me, it triggers my brain saying, I don't know if I'm really safe now.
Totally.
In danger. So conflict is trying to happen. And the other thing about that means that conflict doesn't have to produce polarization. Because if you're creative with conflict, you produce an outcome that you can't create without the tension. So the tension is in the service of relational creativity, unless you polarize. And then it's in the service of relational disaster.
Now, what Oprah loved about Getting Love You Want is two people healing each other's childhood wounds. So let me tell you how conflict shows up. I am God's gift to the world because I can help Harville with his wardrobe, eating right, and da-da-da. Guess what he got growing up? His parents had died by the time he was little, and they almost put him in an orphanage. And he had an older sister who was 15, who was engaged. And instead of him going to the orphanage, she had him come live with him. Guess what? Her. She was bossy. She was always telling him what to do. He had to work. He had to do this. He had to do that. Well, I reminded Harville of his older sister. And it was painful, you know. And
Same stuff all over again.
It tapped into unconsciously all my good advice. Well, I reminded of him as big sister. So I had to learn to trust. And what Harville needed was someone beside him who trusted him, that he's going to figure things out. And that's true. I had to grow into a new part of me to trust Harville and learn to, if he makes a mistake, he's a grown-up. I don't have to correct him. And I can learn to develop a new part of me by enjoying silence, enjoying wonder. I wonder when Harville will catch up and figure that out. He's got to do it now. So I get to develop I grow into a part of me I hadn't grown because I was sort of anxious. And Harville saw the same thing with me. I had an issue from my childhood of not being seen, and Harville, he then had to meet my childhood need by learning to see me better, and thank me for things I was doing. And he grew apart, and now we're both much more whole and happy, and we have the best marriage on the planet, I think.
I agree. I mean, I love seeing the two of you together. One of the things that the listener can't see is that there is just such a nice sense of harmony between the two of you. And I've noticed that, when one of you wishes to speak, there's kind of a silence, signaling that the two of you have coordinated over the years, two very, very smart people, each who wants to contribute. And you found a way to allow for the relationship to dictate protocol.
Yeah, allow the relationship dictate. That's beautiful. I'm going to write that
down. Right on.
Yeah.
I want. Oh yeah, go ahead, Harville.
Yeah, but I think what the listeners need to also understand is that this did not come naturally. That if we ran into each other when we started doing public presentations together, we ran into each other all the time.
Gosh, I imagine.
Worst nightmares was getting ready for a public presentation and processing it afterwards. So again, we had to say, we have to do an on-ramp to the stage here without running into each other on the stage. We finally learned what you're talking about an agreed upon process and a signaling device that we don't do what we did on the first 3 months of our relationship, which is talk while the other person is talking. Just what we were doing, that neither one of us would listen. So that same process of creating space within which creating space, your space is big enough with the other person to move into it. They create a big enough space that you can move into their space without bumping into them. So then after a while, it becomes a dance. And the dance that Helen is very charismatic and emotional and engaging, as you know. In hearing her, I'm logical, linear, rational, so that we sort of carry the left and right side of the brain onto the stage. And I think that's what people feel, is that there's a full representation of humanity here, but it takes two people to do it. I'm a carrier of the left brain, Helen of the right brain. I've grown a little right brain since I met Helen. She's grown a lot of left brain since she met me. And but we still keep doing that. But we had to learn to dance. So we wanted to say to people, and what we'd also say, and Helen, you often say this, if we could do it, given where we were, almost got a divorce about 20-something years ago. We were on the way to the divorce court. And we turned it around by deciding we would practice what we were preaching, which is the dialogue imago process, zero negativity, and affirmations. And we took us 9 months we gave ourselves 9 months. If we can't turn it around in 9 months, we're out of here.
Well, and we brought in a new process, which was zero negativity.
And that's when,
it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was the salvation, was us discovering.
Well, and every night before going to bed.
And the appreciation.
We had a calendar. And we got a smiley face if we made it through the day with neither of us experiencing a put down from the other.
Yeah. And that was your idea
face
too.
If either of us felt put down. And we had frowny face, frowny face, frowny face, frowny face, frowny face. At the end of the day, one of us felt put down by the other. And there were these minor little things that I didn't realize I was doing that made you feel put down. And you told me.
Yeah.
So the next day I tried not to do it that way.
Yeah.
And you asked for the way you wanted it done. Yeah. And vice versa.
And I think the greatest growth in self-awareness, instead of it being in the therapy office, is in the relationship, to learn from your partner what you're doing that actually is crossing boundaries. And also we did that calendar, which was your idea, on zero negativity. But at the time we were not doing the affirmations. Later on, we decided to add affirmations on a daily basis. And so now we do, I think we got the calendar monitored so we're not running into each other that much. But we keep growing the relationship by 3 affirmations a day.
And
at night before we go to bed.
There's a phrase we like, what you focus on is what you get.
Wow.
So it trains your mind to pay attention to enough. What am I going to appreciate tonight? Instead of, I'm going to add to my list of what he did wrong and could have improved if I tell him.
Yeah. So good. Well, we're at our last question, but I have to just reflect a few things back that zero negativity does not mean zero conflict. It means not being critical and probably embodying some of the four horsemen of the apocalypse for John Gottman. And it sounds like, I loved when Helen brought up the concept of the chasm between what we know and what we do. And the willingness to do what we know requires so much humility, curiosity, and willingness to say, I am subservient to the relationship and not just to my ego. I just think that's brilliant. I guess, and if that's okay, just nod, let me know that I was on point. Okay, it sounds like I'm on point. Good. But my final question to the two of you. If you had the magical powers to confer on every living being one skill, what would it be? And what do you imagine the impact would be on the individual as well as society at large?
I can dive in.
Go.
This is
we've
the one.
We've never been asked that question before.
Just so there won't be silence.
Yes.
I'll just say one thing, which is learn to ask for what you want. Use gender responsibility. Most people know what they don't want, and they have their list of things that irritate them, and they don't know how to respectfully ask for what they need or want that would address what they don't like happening. Mm-hmm. And so it's what we call this converting a frustration into a request. And people are bad at asking for what they want. They'll go, well, I just want you to love me more. Just love me. You just don't love me. I feel like you don't love me. Well, what does that mean? So you have to ask for, would you text me at noon every day and just tell me you love me? We're at different places, or every other day, when you go to bed, would you offer to rub my feet? Or you have to ask for what you want in a way that the person can do it. It can't be vague. And that way I think everyone's partner is longing to be a hero or shero in the relationship, but we defeat them because we're so critical. Well, you don't do this, and you don't do this. And the person just goes, I'm giving up. And we have to help our significant other become a hero or a shero, because that's what they want. So ask for little things that your partner can do for you that make them feel successful in the relationship. And
I just want to underline the word do for you. So when you ask for what you want, it's not like I want more love. That doesn't cut it. Mm-mm. I mean, I would experience more love if you would rub my feet, look at me in the eyes, say these following words. It has to be behavioral. Otherwise, you have no new information for the brain to process. The brain can't process an abstraction into an action. So I like that, Helen, and I have a little different one, which is an on-ramp to that one. I would say to everybody, before you talk, ask for permission.
Which is a protocol within your, yes. Okay, that's beautiful. And what do you imagine, I love these ideas, what do you imagine would happen to the individual and perhaps to society if people could do this?
Well, one thing that would happen is that making an appointment to talk to another person honors boundaries. I honor your boundary by saying, is it okay if I talk now about X? Now, boundary violation is the source of international conflict.
For sure.
It's the source of interpersonal conflict. Boundary violations is, in fact, I think, the source of most conflict. Cross my boundary and you're in trouble. From the micro to the macro. So what would happen to the whole world is that we would have peace if we'd stay out of each other's spaces unless they invited us in.
And to take this a little further, to ask for an appointment when you say something, you maybe are reactive and suddenly want to say something. if you say, is now a good time that I can share a thought with you, it moves you from the reactive part of the brain to the upper brain. And then when you use the dialogue process, you're in the upper brain, and I'm the sender and I'm saying this succinctly. So my partner can mirror, and then a mirror, or they're in their upper brain. Basically, we're retraining our brains and we're developing new brains. And we think that this is the next stage in human evolution, that the neocortex, the new brain, is going to become stronger, which means we're less reactive and less likely to push the button to start World War III.
Mm. I'm going to just build on this because I'm such a fan of both of you, and say that I think that if people were able to incorporate your technology, we would have less divorce, we would have happier children, we'd have less substance abuse, we'd have happier companies, corporations would be happier. And I believe that things as simple as road rage would go by the wayside because people are happier and more connected and grounded at home. I can't, yeah?
Something that I love, did 20 years, Harville said, don't people realize the connected couple is the upstream prevention that prevents all the downward up?
Heard him say that, and I couldn't agree more. I can't thank you enough, Helen and Harville, for taking your time to share your wisdom, for creating a system that I have come to rely on personally and clinically. And I just think the world of both of you. And I love that you two practice what you preach.
Thanks, Adam. We're still in there slugging on a daily basis. Thank you for having us on. Great to see you and to see your wonderful smile and glow.
Yeah, and it was a brilliant man named Jason Ilian that told us that thing about cyberspace. So I'm not with cyberspace, but if anyone is in that digital space and wants to learn about Safe Conversations, we'd be happy to share.
Yeah, and that would be safeconversations.com to go to that to see what Safe Conversation is, and if you would like to be trained in it or be a part. It's a social movement as well as a technology, but it's a technology in the service of a social movement. So
well, I will certainly.
We'd love to have anybody who wants to be a part of changing society to go to that website and join us.
Well, I will certainly include that in my show notes. And Helen and Harville, thanks again.
Thank you, Adam.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.